going to do a longer format video today, so roughly running for about 5 minutes. So you can have this video playing in the background, whether you're going for a walk in the car or whether you're going out into the gym. You can have this video playing in the background and just listen up. And today what I want to do is share my story. I'm going to make this a 4-part weekly series, going for around 5 minutes each time. And really talking about my journey of how I started collecting in 2025. And so hopefully you can get some bits and pieces out of this as well for yourself, and also join along the journey as I continue to grow my Pokemon sealed portfolio, and also just join in the community, I guess. So it all started, let's get started. So it all started in 2020 during the pandemic. Really brought a lot of nostalgia back into collecting, but it was for me either sports cards or Pokemon. And I had my first daughter in 2020, and I didn't really have the capacity to learn about both things like sets, things like specific cards, and really the niche of one field, particularly sports card, was where I was more interested in at that time. I had a friend who was really into collecting Pokemon, and we both connected through Pokemon Go. Remember that virtual game where we would go walking around? That was a massive phenomenon and a huge hit, and we connected there, and he started getting to Pokemon cards. And so we connected then, but I was more into sports cards, particularly in buying things like singles and then grading them. Okay, so a lot of these skill sets that I accumulated in 2020 has brought me to where I am here in 2025, 2026. Okay, so I started off with really essentially nothing, and during the pandemic I started getting into sports cards. So I was buying singles, I was buying boxes, and I was ripping them for fun, as we all were. And during that time, all cards started to get really popular. So all cards, particularly singles, they started to get really popular. And if you bought specific players, hot players, just like Pokemon cards, but you've got, your Pikachus, your Eevees, your Charizards, your Mews, your Mewtwo's, you got your popular Pokemons, right? And sports cards was exactly the same. You had your popular basketball players. And so during that hype, all the cards would just escalate in price. They would just increase because of the sheer demand of them and popularity. So I was buying like really low pickups of like $4-5 cards, singles, and would flip them into $10-15. And so I just kept rinsing and repeating that kind of cycle. It got me to a point where I got interested in grading these cards. So I would submit these cards, almost on a monthly basis, where I would have a lot of singles. I would inspect them myself, and I would actually send them out to grading. And so that learning process of grading through PSA was a good learning lesson for me. I've got a lot of PSA, 6s, 7s, a fair few of 9s and 10s along the way. And so I was able to identify with my eye what made really good grading, what made a card valuable in terms of grading. So with its centering, its corners, its edges, and its surface. Right, I dabbled into BGS a little bit as well, but I found like my grading with them was about $50 per card, and their turnaround time was pretty long. So instead, I switched to PSA. It was just easier for me, and it kind of took around 1 year to begin with, which was pretty unreal for it to take a long time. And right now, and after submitting these cards and having them back, I would then resell them onto the secondary market like Facebook. I would sell them on eBay as well. And I would go to local card shows and start to build a bit of a community and network. So essentially that is how I started back in 2020. And that was the easiest way for me to understand the process of cards and grading them, and really learning about specific picks and sets. And that's really, really important. And the learning lesson from the sports cards in 2020 has really carried across through to me now in 2025. And so, when I got into Pokemon, I didn't know much about Paldean Fates, or I didn't know much about 151, but I knew about buying MSRP, and I knew about nostalgic Pokemon, and that's what resonated to me first and foremost. So I got into that space, and then I did the same process as I did with sports cards into Pokemon, and that was pretty much it. I want to keep it really short for week 1 of the series. But that's essentially how my Pokemon portfolio started into my collection in 2025. Now, coming into week 2 of the series, next week I'm going to showcase and talk more about the specifics of how I got into a deeper dive with Pokemon, and really the process of building a lot of momentum in that. Okay, but it's very similar to how I got involved in sports cards. But I'd like to share more about the Pokemon specifics in next week's video. So if you enjoyed this, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you got some good value out of that. Please, while we're here as well, please make sure you do send a like and you do hit a comment on this if you enjoyed this video and want to see more of these weekly series. It does improve the algorithm of this video, and I'm really trying to push consistency this year on building this community and building this content, so you may also learn from this, grow, and also hopefully start a collection yourself. Okay, so take care guys, and I'll see you back in next week's video.